Well, the starting point is the legislative framework driven by the Paris Agreement. The second is that construction is one of the biggest carbon footprint. So there's also a very, very significant amount of stock that is not going to actually hit those legislative frameworks. And actually there's also the energy efficiencies. Generally, occupiers are looking to occupy buildings that are much more efficient, particularly with the energy price rises that happened in the course of the last couple of years. So there's a combination of factors that means actually the concentration on decarbonisation of property is exactly the right thing for us to be doing. It's quite fundamental actually. You just got to analyse each building and each one on its own merits. So you have to do a CREM analysis, which is effectively looking at both the embodied carbon, which is the carbon that's actually in the physical building itself, and then there's also the other side, which is the operational carbon, how much energy that building actually uses. In simplistic terms, it's actually to stop using fossil fuel. So that's one of the first things that we'll look at, but it's also then looking at how you can improve the systems in the building, the heating, the cooling, whether we can improve the insulation, whether we can actually, through use of smart technology, drive down the energy efficiency even more in these buildings. So really it's a combination of factors, but you have to look at the individual buildings to start with, then also take into consideration the market, what occupiers actually want, and driven by all of that data that you can use as an input, that allows you to actually create a business plan and take that forward. On the face of it, it sounds like it should be quite straightforward, but actually it depends very much on CapEx, because the one thing that we have to find is the alignment between what's right for the property, what's right for the investor, what's right for the regulation. And as long as those things align, it becomes relatively straightforward, because we're talking about physical processes. Where we find it more tricky is where you have different alignments and different stakeholder interests. Where we actually add extra value is in the more complex side, which is increasing in planning, or actually going further than other people might in terms of creating a really good quality product. I think from the development perspective, it's actually our primary conviction at the moment. There's several reasons why ground up development is quite difficult, and that's mainly driven by increases in building costs, increases in interest rates, and capital returns are just very difficult to justify new build. But actually, more importantly, we think that the reusing of buildings is actually a key part of the drive to actually try and create this net zero carbon by 2050. So it's actually a very important part of our skill set, and I think it's also going to be a big drive for us in the next 2 or 3 years. Well, I suppose the exemplar one is the Louise, which is a 1960s tower, 24-storey tower building in Brussels. We've taken that right back to the frame, brand new glazing, totally new M&E equipment. We've introduced a lot of biodiversity, which also has a social impact as well as an environmental impact. We're introducing smart technology into the building, and it's predominantly not fossil fuel. So actually we've got our net zero carbon down there with the use of some offsets down to zero. And actually it's going to be the proof of the pudding, because we've got 3 or 4 really high quality tenants already in place. So that's one of our really, really key projects. But we have got several others. We've got a large office building called Lichtwerk in Berlin. We're doing a hotel renovation in Lisbon, which is very exciting. It used to be a hotel, became an office, is now back to a hotel again. And obviously the other one in London, which is going to be produced new headquarters, which we developed and managed, which was Endell Street, which is an old private members club, which has then been turned into an office. Again, fantastic reuse of existing buildings. So we've got a really, really good experience across a broad spectrum of both sectors and geography.